crypt inside the hillside. And that crypt that was created for the prison ship martyrs is still the crypt that's there now. And this is what the inside of it looks like. They did a huge parade from the old location to the new Washington Park. There's 20 bluestone caskets that look like this. They haven't changed. They haven't been moved since. They're inside there now, that carry the remains of all of those 11,500, and they're in the crypt there. So now you get a secret look of what inside the crypt looks like. Then we go into the 1880s, 1890s, 1900s, like anything else. You know, budgets go up and down. So good times are coming. If you think we're in a bad budget, you're wrong, but it's going to get good again. So in the early 1900s, we get McKim, Mead and White, very renowned. They've done the Capitol, they've done the Brooklyn Museum, they've done some elaborate things throughout the country. They're hired to redesign Fort Greene Park, and the Fort Greene Park name sticks from the 1890s on. They build the grand 100-foot wide staircase that we have now, the granite staircase, and at the time it was the largest freestanding door column in the world. So the prison ship martyrs finally get their monument. It has an elevator to the top, a twin helix staircase to the top. I could go on forever. And they did unveil it on November 14th, 1908, with a big veil, right, Ruth? And we'll show you in a little bit what else we did. And so this is what the layout looked like back then. A lot more paths than you see in the park now. That was sort of the original path plan. Fast forward to Robert Moses. Whether you like him or hate him, I don't care. But he did do a lot of park work. And one of the things he did was he had Amor Embry and Gilmore Clark, two remarkable architects, redo parks throughout the city, and indeed did some things at Fort Greene Park. So the things that you see added, the wings up at the Northern Plaza where the monument is, those were added on. The park path system was sort of simplified. Many paths were eliminated at that time. They did do some plantings, whether you like ginkgos or not, trees are our friends. They put some ginkgos in and some plantings on the plaza. And they took out the elevator at that time and the helix staircase at that time. And this is in the 30s. There was a lot of fervor just before the bicentennial in 1976 to do stuff to get ready for the bicentennial. And there was a plan by a guy named A.E. Bai. Unfortunately, the 70s were not great fiscal times then. So his plans were to eliminate and change around some of the paths. That never actually got put into place. Some things did happen in the 70s. There was some of that cobblestone work down at the bottom of the steps was done in the 70s. There was the King of Spain had a misspelled plaque that was brought in. I mean, not a few misspellings, there were a lot of misspellings on it. And there were a few other things that were done in the 70s. And then, like a lot of things in the 70s, the place went into neglect. We took out the eagles, we took out the cannons, and it was not doing very well. Happily, we had good elected officials that cared. We had a good borough president, good council member, good state representation. We had the Fort Greene Conservancy. We had people really rallying around saying, we're not going to accept that the park is foregone, and they lobbied for money. We got $5 million in the late 90s and early part of the 20s, and we got $5 million to redo the monument, redo the plaza, do some work to the crypt. And while that work was under construction, it started in 2006, we also worked to do sort of an in-house project with the Conservancy, because the story that I just told you needs to be told. So we built the inside of the visitor center virtually on a shoestring budget, a lot of volunteer labor, and I want to thank the Conservancy for all the work they did on that. So we had David McCullough here for the opening of that. And then, of course, at the centennial of the Prison Ship Martyrs Monument, once again we unveiled it on November 15th, 2008, in the pouring rain. I don't think it's rained like that since. There's only two enemies of a piece of cloth that big, torrential rain and winds, and boy, we had a boat that day. But it was a spectacular day, and it just shows you what a volunteer effort can do. And that brings you to now. Councilmember James partnered with the mayor and the borough president, so if you see those folks, thank them. They pulled together $2.4 million, and what we're sort of doing here is the worst first approach. Everybody's seen the entrance at Willoughby Street. For a long time it's needed some work, it's not wheelchair accessible, and most of Fort Greene Park every rain comes down onto Washington Park and Willoughby Street. We have a terrible drainage problem there. So what we're doing is a bunch of things, but the path system from the visitor center here, around this whole loop, heading out into the field and heading out towards Myrtle Avenue, that whole path system and drainage system is going to be redone. There is going to be a new entrance, new paving on the front there. It's going to be wheelchair accessible. The walls are going to get repaired. There's another slide here that shows you a little bit there. We're putting some new benches in. If you want to talk about benches, please see the Conservancy afterwards. There's naming opportunities for the benches. Shameless plug. We have the cheek walls. I said it. The cheek walls are being done, and the fences are being done. So we're doing a lot of work with that. In the 80s, it was very vogue to do these master plans for the parks, and elected officials would put in, millions of dollars to do these pie-in-the-sky plans, and they really went nowhere. And so what we don't really, the Office of Management Budget won't let you do master plans anymore, but as part of this plan, we're doing a conceptual plan. And that's why we're here tonight, because we want to have a roadmap of what's the next steps, what else has to happen in the future for Fort Greene Park. And we're doing $2.4 million, depending on what you want tonight, could be anywhere from $20 to $80 million worth of work that remains. It's not going to happen in 1 year, it's not going to happen in 2 years. This is obviously a long-range plan. But what this does for us tonight, it gives us the roadmap to follow. It gets your ideas down onto a plan. It gets in a logical order, a phase 1, a phase 2, a phase 3, a phase 20, however many phases it takes. These things cost money more than you could ever imagine. I've been doing this in parks for 27 years. I still don't understand why a brand new comfort station costs $1.8 million, but it does. So just to get all of those ideas down onto paper. So it's a conceptual plan. Every time we affect part of that conceptual plan, we have to do construction documents, we have to come back to the community. So anything that we're putting together tonight is not etched in stone. This is a long 30-year agreement that we'll be doing with folks, so you don't have to panic about that. I'll talk about that. This is just some of the landscaping that's going to happen in that plan, and I'll take some questions later so that we can get through all of that stuff. But that's what's happening, and this conceptual plan is partly funded by this phase 1, $2.4 million plan. So just so everybody understands the history. So that brings us today. We want you involved. This is your park. This is going to be the roadmap for the future. So here's what tonight's objective is.